Week 6 of the PPL and your Vancouver Titans find themselves 3-2 going into the business end of the season. This week we face off against Nexus and his Toronto Tyrants in what is a must-win game, as 4-2 means we move ahead of the pack, whilst 3-3 puts us right back into the scramble. But this isn't going to be an easy game. Nexus has been on his training arc and has a very scary team, with his S tier being the often banned 𝗬𝗫𝗶𝗍. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 is an amazing offensive threat and could just sweep us if we don't prevent it from setting up. And it's backed up by 𝗍𝗫𝗄 and Gengar, both of which are threats in their own right. While 𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗄 and 𝗫𝗠𝗠 offer both utility and great typings against my team. Both of his Terra captains in Iron Leaves and Tauros are viable, but the same can't really be said for Appleton and Malamar, both of which should be on the bench. First up on our team is Raging Bolt, holding a weakness policy to attempt to boost up on his answers in 𝗫𝗠𝗠 and 𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗄, since both are difficult for our team. Thunderbolt and Dragon Pulse hit Nexus' team for at least neutral damage, and Thunderclap lets us take advantage of our boosts with priority. Lastly, Calm Mind is vital to this set, so we can take even a Specs boosted Hyper Voice or Earth Power to proc the weakness policy and not just fall over. Despite this plan, I wanted to make sure I was covered against both mons, and Assault Vest to Iron Crown works a fantastic check to 𝗫𝗠𝗠, as well as a backup check to 𝗬𝗫𝗄𝗃 speed. Tachyon Cutter deals massive damage even if 𝗫𝗠𝗠 has a Calm Mind up, while Psyshock does the most if it continues to set up. Future Sight makes the most of Nexus essentially not having a dark type by throwing it off and using the last move Volt Switch to pivot out, but really Tachyon Cutter deals a lot of damage to a lot of things on his team. Assault Vest Great Tusk comes this week as our way of checking 𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗄𝗃, as well as putting massive pressure on Nexus' team due to the fact that he doesn't really have a ground switch in. Headlong Rush is guaranteed damage here against everything that isn't one of his grass types, so Mega Horn comes as the best way to hit both of those. Heavy Slam hits 𝗫𝗠𝗠 for the most damage, and Rapid Spin gives us the speed to outrun some of his faster offensive mons and become even more scary. Next up we have 𝗬𝗠 running a Choice Scarf as a means of revenging some key threats on his team. +1 𝗬𝗁𝗁, 𝗬𝗫𝗄𝗃 speed, Boost to speed Iron Leaves, and even Scarf 𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗄𝗃 are all extremely scary, and 𝗬𝗠 kinda covers them all and can hit them with super effective damage with either Power Whip or Knockoff. Terra Blast gives us the best damage against 𝗫𝗠𝗠 and his grass types, and U-Turn is simply there as a way to pivot if we can't KO what's in front of us. Preserving 𝗬𝗠 for an endgame is going to be vital, because it realistically should just be able to click Power Whip or Knockoff in the endgame and just clean up. Nexus has a huge dark type weakness, so Spiritomb comes as well, making its debut as a bulky disruptor this week. Its main job is to get off a Toxic on either the 𝗫𝗠𝗠 or the 𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗄𝗃 whilst threatening the rest of Nexus' offensive pieces with foul play. We're running a Roselia Berry to cover our weakness to 𝗫𝗠𝗠, and hopefully that will guarantee a turn of Toxic. Shadow Sneak is great priority here since he has no resist to it outside of Tauros, and Pain Split keeps us healthy while simultaneously chipping at Nexus' team. The last member this week is Talonflame, of course running heavy duty boots because we do not want to take rocks. Fire and Flying are two types that once again Nexus really struggles with, and Talonflame's speed makes it even harder to take down. It also doubles as a really good check to 𝗍𝗠𝗠, which currently our team is a little bit weak to, especially if we lose our Great Tusk. Flare Blitz and Brave Bird make the lack of investment attack this week not matter too much, and U-Turn, as with 𝗬𝗠, helps us rack up chip damage on things that we do not want to be staying in on, and realistically Roost is just there for longevity should he bring a bulkier team. And that's going to be our 6 for this week. As long as we avoid such landmines as Calm Mind 𝗫𝗠𝗠, Scarf or Spec 𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗄𝗃, and 𝗬𝗁𝗁 snowballing out of control, then I think we should be fine. Make sure to check out Nexus. He's one of the most entertaining guys in the community and can beat almost anyone on his day. And if you're enjoying the content, then please do think about leaving a like or subscribing, as 80% of our viewers aren't actually subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the battle. Okay, so here we are for the battle against Nexus. What do you bring? You bring the Gengar I wasn't necessarily expecting. Does make some sense against my team, and the Iron Leaves I kind of expected but kind of didn't. The Gengar could be problematic, but our 𝗬𝗠 should be able to deal with it. Looking at this, if we're able to get rid of 𝗫𝗠𝗠 and Quack, then 𝗬𝗠 can look at Knockoff. If we get rid of the, or if we force the Iron Leaves to Terra, Power Whip becomes incredibly free. I do want to get a Toxic off on something if I can. So I might just lead off with my Spiritomb. There's no Sizzle. Okay. Makes sense, I do have a Talonflame. So yeah, I'll go with this. Gengar puts a lot of pressure on both my AV mons, so that is a good bring against my team. Hopefully I'm able to do enough to check it early game. Like it might have Psychic, but it shouldn't have too much to do with a Terra Poison Zarude. So yeah, we'll lock that in. I feel like Spiritomb shouldn't die to any one hit from Gengar. No, Spec Shadow Ball does not do enough. So if he does lead off with Gengar, we just Foul Play. What's it going to be? Twin Blade, that is you. Okay, well that's actually kind of ideal. I'm fairly happy, I think, just to click Foul Play off Rip here. Because if he stays in, obviously he will do a lot of damage. If he switches, he goes out into, what? Sylveon, most likely. I guess I could Toxic, but I really just want to kind of weaken this thing off Rip. He's just going to set rocks. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. But this Foul Play should do a good amount. Well, actually, it does nothing. It's Rocky Helmet. Good to know. We do have Rapid Spin, so I'm not too concerned about this. I could Toxic once and then Foul Play afterwards. I think that's what I want to do, just in case. Okay, he does the spikes. So I could have just Foul Played there, but I'm kind of surprised that this is what he's going with. I think Foul Playing again is actually just fine. Because if he does go into Sylveon, we are Roselli, we can take a hit. Nah, he's just going Nightshade. Okay. So very supportive Deoxys off Rip. It is going to be a bit of a problem for me. But it is what it is. By a Poltergeist, that thing would have fucking dropped. But oh well. I mean, that's one thing less for Great Tusk to worry about. He did bring in Gengar, so I do have to be careful about Rapid Spinning. If he goes Sylveon here, I think I just want a Toxic. I might just like use this, because the Spikes plus Stealth Rock do chip away at my Iron Crown a little bit. I don't really like that too much. Jared, I'm pretty sure that's a Sylveon. I would really like a Toxic on this. We do now die. Would now die to a Hyper Voice. Do we want to keep this around at all? Stops him from spamming the fighting move, but so does Talonflame, so will Zarude once we get it Terra'd. If he isn't... Right, we are pretty low, so I'm going to make the assumption that Hyper Voice 38 to 45, I think I'm at like 103, so I probably do just die. Yeah, I would. I could also just Pain Split, because I think he's going to go for like a Calm Mind or something along those lines. I could just Pain Split, and yeah, I think that's the better play. He could just Hyper Voice. He doesn't. Okay, this has worked out perfectly for me. Like, my main thing is that if he's set up there, it becomes a lot more difficult for my Iron Crown, especially with the hazards up, to be able to try and check Sylveon. Because if he gets to +1, then Shadow Ball does Shadow Ball does do a lot, excuse me. And we'd probably be at like 50-ish%, and he can switch out pretty freely out to Sandy Shocks. And whilst the hazards are still there, it's not going to be a fun time for me. And this would also mean that I haven't just wasted my spiritomb to kill a Deoxys, which, you know, is a sentence of all time by all means. In comes the Quack. Okay. I don't mind this too much, because I could just Toxic it, and I don't think he's going to be sub. I'm just going to go for that. He could be banded with like Wave Crash, but we'll find out if he goes for it here. He could also just double back into, yeah, he could double back into the Sylveon, in which getting a Toxic would be so nice. Okay, nice, cool. And we land. Who am I and what have I done with Jack? Because I have landed 2 Toxics in this one game. Sure is a time to be alive. I think I just want to go for another Pain Split, because if he does attack me here, then I can get all that health back in exchange, because we are Roselli. Yeah, he just Hyper Voices. This will show whether or not he specs. I don't think that's specs. Either way, I will take this damage every day of the week. We actually end up on more health than we were before. The Toxic is going to put this around half. Now I feel pretty confident going out into my Iron Crown, because he's at a low enough amount of health that I can realistically do the whole pivot around Great Tusk and get rid of these hazards, because without the hazards there's no way this thing should be able to 1v1 me. But Spiritomb putting in the absolute finest of work at the start. It goes for a Yawn. Okay, I'm just going to double, because I don't want this to go to sleep. I think the safest mid ground is going to be the bird. If I had Defog, oh boy, if we had Defog. But regardless, if Sandy Shocks comes in, we go out into Tusk, we get the Rapid Spin off potentially. We can go for a Headlong Rush, so he shouldn't want to go into Gengar. Even if he does, we'll be in a good spot. Yawn is a little bit annoying, but now we're going into something that realistically shouldn't care as much. PPL Pokemon. So if I had to actually Volt Switch, this thing would be dead. Or would have been dead on the next time it comes in. But is it as good as? Now, do we take a single hit from Shocks? I don't think we do. And I don't think it's ever worth trying to live that. I mean, we'd live a Volt Switch. We'd live a Volt Switch, but I think just going Great Tusk is the better play. For now, just scout the damage and hopefully get rid of these hazards. What do you want to do? Try attack? That's wild. That is crazy deck. See, I could definitely Headlong. He could be Air Balloon. Could be Air Balloon Gengar to be able to switch in on this. And if that's the case, do I want to just Heavy Slam once to break the Air Balloon? I think that's what I want to do. I think it's going to be Air Balloon Gengar, I'm going to call it. In comes the Sylveon. I could have just Rapid Spin. But that's not the end of the world. So Quack can come in. I'm trying to think whether or not these hazards are going to be detrimental enough to the extent in which I need to remove them at the expense of my Great Tusk, or whether Sandy Shocks becomes more of an issue if Great Tusk goes down. Which it definitely could. Like, Sandy Shocks looks pretty threatening into my team. Saying that, there's a lot of pressure taken off my Iron Crown because Sylveon's just died. So it started quite nicely. Ascalad? That's going to be the Gengar. Don't show an item. If this is specs, how much does it do to me? Because it definitely would change how I want to approach this, right? If it's specs, it does 37 to 44. If it has gleam, it does 50 to 59. I feel I can bring this in again later and still be fine, but I don't switch it into this mon particularly well. So I think I'd rather Headlong. You just Shadow Balls. I use specs. Yes, 100% that specs. So Tusk trades 2 for 1. How do I end up losing this game now? If Quack gets set up. So if Quack comes in here, I always attack. Do I get rid of the hazards? I do still have Raging Bolt. But again, if he gets set up, so yeah, I think I've got to just Headlong. Because if he just gets a Moxie boost, we're fine. We can just go into Zarude, but if he sets up an SD and then gets the Moxie boost, that's when it becomes an issue. I guess actually either way. Because if he Aqua Steps, he gets +1/+1. Copernicus, that wasn't... yeah. Okay, so this is Booster. I assume it's going to be Terra Electric. Speed was heightened. Makes sense. I am... do I want to go for a Headlong? I could go for a Mega Horn. Like, surely you don't Terra in front of this. And if you SD, this punishes the SD. Like, he could Terra, because why would I Headlong rush into this? Like, surely I would go for like a knockoff or something like that. But if he goes into this here, we've got to assume that he's trying to set up. And if he doesn't set up, this thing's much less of a threat. He just Side Blades. Okay. So you shouldn't be able to touch. I could also go into you. What do you do? What does this do to a Spiritomb? It is Iron Leaves. I mean, if he Terras, we still do 46%. Leaf Blade should never do enough, but the hazards are here to stay, so I've got to remember that. Okay, so 151, this should never be able to do enough to me, so I will just Foul Play. Especially if it's booster speed. If it's booster speed, it has to be jolly max and not max attack. So yeah, we should be in a pretty good spot. As long as he doesn't, like, you know, do something nasty to me. I don't believe there's anything that this can do to one-shot me. Now, what are you going to be? Psyblade? Yes, this might just die. This will be a roll, for sure. I mean, even if it doesn't, I just... okay, so now I just sneak it. And Crisis is somewhat averted. Because this would be a threat. In this current position, this would be a threat. So I think, yeah, foul playing... I think that was the right trainer moves. Now, he might switch on a sucker, but if he switches, he's just wasted everything. So, yeah. Spiritomb picking up 2. You love to see it. Now, we just click Power Whip. And as long... assuming we land. We should be fine. However, he does still have a scary couple of mons that are left. So, yeah, the game's definitely not done. Far from. I'm going to assume that Quack will absolutely be able to do... it might not be able to do enough damage, actually. I might be able to just go for a pain split on it. Because we're quite low. We're like, what, 110, I think, or 130? I think we're at 130, so we should always be able to live. Unless he is a boosting item. At which point we just pain split. And even if he SDs... I think we will still be alright. Which one does he go into? He does go into Quack. How much does Foul Play do if he SDs? That's 56. Just wondering how much I get back to. If he's a, what, 70-ish? 65%, I would say? He's at 202. I'll get up to 162-ish. Which would not be enough to live Aqua Stab. But we do still have Raging Bolt even in the back. So I will just Foul Play in the off chance that he SDs. Aqua Stab shouldn't do enough. Yeah. And this will at least do like 30%. Crown should always be able to live one as well. I can sneak. Put it out of range of a potential sub. Yeah. And then I just go into Raging Bolt. And I think we have like Thunderclap shenanigans, potentially. Is there any way of me avoiding that? Like, do you live a +1? I mean, that's probably crazy, right? A +1? Yeah, you have no hope. you have no hope. Raging Bolt. I think that's got to be the go-to. Because at the very least, this should... Like, it could force him to switch. I will just go for the Thunderclap. I have no reason to overpredict, yeah. And I think unless this... I don't know, Sandy Shocks probably does actually just knock me out from it. So... depends on what set it has. If it's Specs, then yeah, 100%. But we'll find out that it's Specs. 301 should be enough health for us to be able to just get off a Dragon Pulse after proccing the weakness policy. Nope, it does just kill me from there. 301. So I was a 75, it was a roll. Regardless, I should be able to go into the route here and just Power Whip. We have taken a bit of a chunk, but I think we should be okay to try two. Are we really going to be like this? How much does Earth Power do? Oh, it does nothing. It does nothing, so we have a couple of attempts. Oh, come on, Tarood. Come on, man. I think he might be choice locked anyway, so I think we might still be fine. Even if we do just miss every Power Whip. There we go. Good job, Tarood. Got a little bit, as the Sandy Shock says, shiesty at the end there. But we are going to be able to pick up a 3-0 win and move up to 4-2. Good game to Nexus. Make sure to go check him out. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Until the next one, have a great day, guys. Peace.